Hello everybody, Adrienne here, and today I'm coming to you with the review / comparison of the new Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette reformulated. This palette was reformulated and released about 2 months ago. I purchased a big Wet n Wild order. I just haven't posted a haul for you guys. I decided to jump right in and start creating eye looks. So this is the first palette that I will be comparing to its old formulation, and this is what the old palette looked like. You can still pick this palette up in some drugstores. I still see it on shelves occasionally where it has not sold out, but today I will be swatching this palette for you and showing you the differences between it. This palette cost $4.99. I think this one was $4.99 also when I got it about a year ago, and you can order it off of the Wet n Wild website also. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and swatch the new formulation so that we can compare it with the old. We're going to start off with the two new transition shades up here and down here, and this is what they look like swatched on my fingers. I'm going to go ahead and swatch them on the back of my hands now and show them to you, and oh, those are gorgeous. That is what the new transition shades look like. You may not be able to see the top shade on my hand very well because it matches so closely to my skin tone, but those are the new transition shades here and here. The swatches on the back of my hand are going to be these 4 colors here in this first row compared with the old colors. And looking at the colors, the top shade is the new palette and this is the old. So this would be the new and this would be the old. And on this side it's the same way. That's the new and this is the old. And that is the new and this is the old. The colors pretty much look the same to me. I really can't tell any difference in them. So I'm going to see how they perform. The shade doesn't look different to me at all. They pretty much feel the same when you swatch them. I think maybe the newer palette feels a little creamier, but I'm really going to need to work with them. And this rich shade here, I definitely noticed that it felt creamier when I was swatching it. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch the second side. For the second side, these shades right here of the palette, I did find that I ran into some different shades. I want you guys to take a peek at this when I was swatching them. And I will point out the colors in specific. These 2 colors down here on the bottom are completely different. It's now a little bit lighter, and that is this shade here in the newer palette compared to this crease shade here in the old palette. It is definitely lighter since it's been reformulated, because when I swatched this one, that was in the first row. It seems like maybe they this color and that color are the same color when I swatched the first row, but now this one and this one here, they're not the same looking at my hand at all, and they didn't feel the same when I was swatching them. The duochrome color in the old palette, this one, and in the new palette, I thought it built a little bit easier in the new palette, and definitely for sure when I swatched this last color here, which is this one here on the top, the new palette, it went on creamy and buttery and it was very pigmented, and when I swatched it, and it is the crease color here in the old palette, it was chalky and I had to go over it 3 times to build that color. It was dry and chalky and not very pigmented with the first swipe. So there is some difference with the formulation of the palette, but we'll see if there's a difference when we go to apply the shadows. I have used one palette on one eye and the other palette on the other to see if there's a difference in the formulation and how they work. So I will be back with my final thoughts. For the right eye, I'm going to be using the new palette, and for the left side, I am going to be using the correlating shades in the old palette. I'm going to start out first with the transition shade on both eyes since it's only in the new one, and that way I won't get things mixed up. So I'm taking my e.l.f. contouring brush, and I'm going to go in with the transition shade here up top. And just blend that in as a base and set my eye primer. And I double prime my eyes because I have hooded eyes and I get creasing, and I like to use the NYX eyeshadow base, and I'm just going in with more of that transition shade for the other eye. But I use NYX eyeshadow base, and then I like to take a little dab of the Milani eye primer and mix the 2 of those together. I find that it blends really easily because the NYX paste can be kind of thick and tacky, really sticky and hard to get it to blend nicely. Just adding a little more of that transition shade. And it's nice that they say transition on it. This is blending well. I think I want a little bit more on each side, so I'm going to add more. It's buildable. It's not going to be overly pigmented when you go in with the first swipe because this e.l.f. brush picks up quite a bit of color, and I'll actually show you here how much I've got on here. It picks it up pretty well. So I'm setting this, but this shade seems to be more of a skin tone shade for me, so I'm not surprised that it's taking a little more to get it to show up like a color. Now I'm going to take an e.l.f. blending brush here, eye blending brush, and I'm going to go in with this transition shade down here at the bottom on both sides. And just go up in and a little bit above the crease. This is a pretty reddish brown color. Sorry guys, my nose is starting to run. That happens a lot when I mess with my eyes. So I will try to keep my head down so you can't see that, but when I have powders and dust flying around, that's typical when I'm putting on my makeup. Wow, this color is really pigmented and blending really easily. This is going on so quickly. I'm really finding this shade easy to work with. I think the first one was easy to work with too. I just think it was just so close to my own natural skin tone that it seemed like I needed a lot of product, but it wasn't for a lack of pigmentation. And I'm going to come in on the inner corner just a little bit more with the shade on both eyes. Okay, and for some reason, let me pause for a second and stop this runny nose because it's really not going to be cute. Okay, now that I'm back from that, I really am wanting to go in with the greens in each of the palettes. This shade here and this one down here. Let me go ahead and open up this other palette. And that will be this one here and this one here, and then that way we compare them on each eye. So I'm going to do the right eye first, and I'm going to take a flat Mary Kay concealer brush to pick up the first lighter shade of green, and that is this color here. Just pat that on. Oh wow, this is really highly pigmented. Shades going on quickly with just a small amount of patting. And now I'm going to take that same brush and I'm going to take the clean side and pick up the old palette and go in with this color on the left eye and see how it goes on. And it's pretty much applying exactly the same. It's this one, and I did wipe it a little bit harder, so I picked up a little more product. This one is just as pigmented as the other side, so wow, these are both performing like high-end eyeshadow palettes. And that's the great thing about it, because these are not that expensive. You know, $5 for an eyeshadow palette of this quality is insane. I'm going to put a little bit more on the other side. Make sure it's balanced out. Okay, now I'm going to clean this brush off because I want to use it also to put the darker green shade on. Now that that brush is cleaned off, I'm going to go in with this shade down here. And I'm just dabbing my brush lightly in there. And I'm really not having a lot of fallout in this palette. Oh wow, I was not expecting all that. That is highly pigmented. Okay, I may end up needing to blend this out a little bit after I get the color packed on. I'm going to finish packing on as much as I want, and then I'll soften the edges of it. That is really pigmented. This is really impressive. For a drugstore palette, this is really impressive for any type of eyeshadow palette. Okay, now let me look at my brush, make sure I'm getting the clean side. Now I'm going to go in with the crease color on this brush, And this one looks like it's got just a smidgen more glitter in it. I'm not sure. And oh wow, this is highly pigmented, just like the new palette, the updated palette. I'm not seeing much difference in these at all, so the formulation doesn't seem to be different in these palettes. This one I will say, however, and it may just be the different angle that I'm trying to apply it with, crossing my right arm over to the left side, I'm having a little more problems blending it, but I think it's me. I'm going to set that down because I think this is enough of this color. I'm going to go ahead and clean this brush off again and try to get these shades to blend into one another. I don't want to keep adding more color. I just want to soften the line so it's not so obvious. And to clean the brush off, I'm using one of these little, I don't know what you call these pots with the sponges in it, but I'm just rubbing that brush back and forth. And let me try to get this blended a little better so it's not so bold. And this is really blending pretty well. Okay. Now I'm going to take up the palette, and I think for the contouring shade I want to use this color here. So I'm going to pick up a Jessup blending brush and go in with that color and go into the crease. And that is, whoa, look at that pigmentation. That is highly pigmented. Got a little bit of fallout. I hope I'm able to clean that up. Bit of dust off maybe, because I have set my under eye concealer and foundation. I am in the middle of also filming a Wet n Wild foundation review along with Wet n Wild's concealer, so I will post a link to that video right above so you can click on that and watch it also. Oops, and I forgot to switch sides. Okay guys, so I goofed up on that color. Let me clean this brush and I will finish it out with the old palette. So far I do think that they are exactly the same. It's this defined color here. A little bit goes a long way. I would kind of tap it in there. I think I've got more than enough. This is really a dark shade. It's coming off almost black. So I'm definitely going to need to go back in with a clean brush and soften some of the edges of this up because I got it pretty doggone dramatic. But that is my first run of this. What I will say is this palette is extremely pigmented, so you have to be careful because a little bit of these darker shades go a long way. I'm going to take a large eyeshadow brush from Kiss and just go in and soften and blend the edges of this defined contouring shade. And it's softening pretty well. Go in on this side. Hopefully I didn't get too much shadow. Okay, this is blending out pretty well. This is so highly pigmented. I really was not expecting all that pigmentation. It's turning out pretty good though. Wow, I'm always thinking my eye look didn't turn out as dark as I wanted it to on camera. I don't think I'm going to have that problem today. So what I want to do is go back in with that e.l.f. eye blending brush and that second transition shade that we used on the bottom. Go in and add a little bit more brown to that darker shade that I added to just add some depth and dimension because I seem to have lost that. So the color I'm talking about is this one down here at the bottom. So I'm going to take a little bit more of that reddish brown color and go in here. And in the corner of my eyes, I want to take a small, this is an artistry brush. I don't even think the company makes it anymore. I want to go in and do a little pop of color here highlight right in the inner tear duct. So that is from the new palette. Let me clean my brush off and I'll do it with the old. And it's called the Brow Bone color in the old. I think I do like the formulation a little bit better in the new. It could be my imagination, I'm not sure. I think it's slightly different. I'm finding that I'm having an easier time working with the newer formulation and it doesn't seem nearly as messy. And I'm looking at both the eyes, besides that little bit of fallout there, I do see a difference between these two eyes and the way everything blended out. So I am liking the newer palette, this one, a lot better. But I'm going to go off of camera and I'm going to put my lashes and liner on and mascara and I will be right back. So for my final thoughts of new versus old, I have to say I do prefer the new reformulated palette. I like the packaging a lot better. It's a lot more compact. It's more travel friendly. Everything is easier to, well, it's not that it wasn't easy to look out the layout before. I just didn't like it as well as I like this. It looks a little more chic to me. So I really like the layout of this palette and the size. It's very travel friendly. The reformulation of the products is awesome. It's a lot more pigmented. Every single color is got great pigmentation to it. And I like the shade that they did change. It is okay. It's still an okay shade, even though it is totally different than the original palette. So I would definitely recommend this palette for a good neutral palette. It is highly pigmented. It is the quality of some of your higher end $40 or $50 palettes, but it's only $5 and you can pick it up in drugstores. It's easy to get your hands on. So very pleased that Wet n Wild went ahead and decided to throw those transition shades in these palettes because I felt like that really was all that was missing from the palette, and I cannot wait to get into some of the other new palettes that they've created and some of the other revisions that they've made. But thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. You also want to hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button. See you guys soon.